starting in verse 9. So Moses said to Joshua, "Choose men for us and go out. Fight Amalek. Tomorrow I will station myself on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand." For those of you that may not know the story, Israel was traveling. They had left Egypt and they were heading to the Promised Land. And God wanted them to fight the Amalekites. And so there was a battle coming up. The characters here are Moses, the chosen leader of Israel, one of the greatest prophets in all of the Old Testament, and Joshua. We know from other verses, and we may be going through them, he was a young man. He had served Moses from his youth. And here we find Moses giving Joshua a command: choose men for us and go out, fight against Amalek. Tomorrow I will station myself on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. There are things we can learn from this verse this morning. First, we find that Joshua is a man under authority because he's being told to go to war. You don't just tell a friend, go to war. You don't tell someone who's above you to go to war. Moses is commanding someone who is subservient to him to go to war. So we find that Joshua is a man under authority. The next thing we find is that he must have been a wise man. He must have had wisdom, knowledge, maybe some form of discernment, because the command that was given to him is choose men for us. Moses didn't say, hey, I need you to get Jeff and Joe and James and the guys that report to them, and then I need you to go over there and grab those guys. No, he says, choose men for us. He says, Joshua, you go and assemble the army. You go and pick who's going to fight this battle. So there must have been wisdom. There must have been wisdom in him. And let us not forget that he's going out to fight. He's going out. Choose men for us and go out. Fight against Amalek. This tells me, the fighting against Amalek tells me that Joshua was a warrior. You don't have someone who's not a warrior lead a battle. So he was a warrior. And he's commanded to go out. He's commanded to go. So he must have been someone that Moses knew would obey. And he's, of course, being set in front of men, so he was a leader. It must have been someone these men would respect. It must have been someone these men would follow. It must have been someone these men would obey, because you must choose your leaders carefully. For if the men do not respect, if the men will not follow, if the men will not obey, that's going to be a rough battle. There's something else, two more things at least, that we learn about Joshua here. He trusted Moses. Later we're going to see in verse 10, Joshua did as Moses told him and fought against Amalek, and Moses and Aaron and Hur went up to the top of the hill. So we see that Joshua was obedient. There's something important here. Joshua trusts Moses. It's kind of a crazy plan unless you've been in Joshua's position. So what you're telling me is you're sending me out to go into the battle against an army. I'm going to be at the front, and you're going to go stand on top of a mountain farther away from a battle with two other guys and a stick. But that wasn't Joshua's attitude. Joshua did as Moses told him and fought against Amalek. I think Joshua was a man who understood spiritual things. And he also trusted what the Lord had shown him before, because Joshua was amongst those who left Egypt. Joshua heard the stories. He'd probably seen the staff become a snake. He'd seen the Nile turn to blood. And what caused the Nile to turn to blood? Moses put his staff in the water. What happened again and again and again? Not every one of the plagues, but multiple of the plagues. Moses used the staff of God. It's called the staff of God because God told Moses to utilize this staff. And the staff was part of somehow, not as an incantation, not as some sort of relic or artifact, but God chose to incorporate the staff into these miracles. And so Joshua knew that if Moses, the prophet, the leader, the one connected with God, I think he knew, well, if Moses is going on top of a mountain with that staff, something's about to happen. Something's going to occur. I know people in my life that if they came to me and said, all right, here's the deal. So you're going to go to Sudan. And the Lord is saying, you need to go to Sudan, and you need to go to this part of Sudan, and there's dangerous things going on there, but I will be praying for you. I'm going to go be with God while you're there. You call me when you're on the road, and I'm not going to stop praying until you get back to the camp. I would go out, honestly, I'd go out a little afraid, maybe a lot afraid, but there would be a part of me that would have a boldness, because I have prayed with these people and I've seen God hear them, and I've seen miracles happen with them, and I've seen crazy things happen. And so if they're praying, there must be something real going on. The question for me this morning, for us it's really for me this morning. It's a hard one. How much am I like Joshua? Am I under authority? Because here's the thing. Humanity was supposed to be under authority, and whether we believe it or not, we're under authority. So at the beginning, God made Adam, and Adam was supposed to be under God's authority. But then Adam sinned. So what happened? He became a son of the devil. So now he's under the devil's authority. There's no point in the biblical narrative where man is under his own authority. Man is always under someone's authority. You're either a son of God or a son of the devil. You're either in one kingdom or the other, and both have a king. But do we live out being under authority? Are we under authority to our parents if we're kids? And I know these topics are somewhat controversial. As husbands, are we submitted to God? As wives, are we submitted to our husbands? As congregants, as members of the body, are we submitted to our pastors and our elders? As elders and pastors, are we submitted to the people who oversee us? Are we submitted to our mentors? Are we submitted to God? Are we submitted to the government? I only mention all these things because there's verses associated with them, and Joshua was a man who was under authority, and great blessing came because he was under authority. We might do another one of these where we walk through the blessings of Joshua as a follow-up, because, man, the blessings that came to Joshua were amazing. But this is the first time Joshua shows up in the Bible. The first time Joshua, the son of Nun, shows up in the Bible, he's shown to be a man under authority. He's also a man of wisdom. He's also a man who can be trusted to make good decisions. Am I? I think it honestly depends on the circumstances and the situation. I think about the job I have at work, and I came into this job about 1.5 years ago, and in some way, when I started the job, I could really not make any good decisions. I was just in such a learning mode that I could hardly make good decisions. And now I'm starting to see myself beginning to make good decisions, but there's a whole area where I just don't make good decisions. It wouldn't be a good idea to say, you go choose. It'd be a great idea to sit down and say, hey, so here's what we need you to do. What's your plan? Because then I can get feedback. There's some spots where they can just say, go choose. Others, I'm probably going to come back and be like, so this is what I chose, but what do you think? Not with Joshua. Joshua just did as Moses told him and fought Amalek. Go. That's the next thing. Choose men is the first command. And go. Am I going? I think some areas of my life, yes. Some areas of my life, no. I can think of the fact that I really strongly believe that my wife and I are supposed to go door to door in our condo complex, and we're supposed to try to start some sort of home fellowship, Bible study. Not even a Bible study. We really just want to pray for us because I'm struggling. We want to just have a time where people can come and ask their questions about Jesus, ask their questions about the Bible. I'm not going to have all the answers, but we want to have a space where people can come get their questions answered. And I've known about this for like several months, and God keeps telling me the ways to do it, how to do it. And I've got the whole plan in my head, but I am just so afraid of going door to door and knocking on people's doors. And God's even set me up, and he's even got the wife who's like not afraid of going door to door. And then the other day she's like, should we go out today and do it? And I was like, it's late. I don't want to do it. And I just, man, I'm not going. God's come to me and he has said, go. And I'm not going. God in heaven, do I need help? Fight against Amalek. That's the third command. Choose, go, fight. Am I fighting? In some areas, yes. In some areas, no. In some areas, I think I'm fighting. In some ways, I think I see myself fighting the spiritual battles. In some ways, I think I see myself standing up against the enemy and saying, yes, the enemy needs to be broken here. And in other areas, I'm not. And I think, man, I want to boast in my weaknesses. I think there's definitely areas where I need help in that fight. So I've said this on another podcast. I have an accountability partner for the internet because I've struggled with pornography before. I have an accountability partner for food because I struggle with gluttony and sensuality. And so I think there's places where I'm trying to fight Amalek, the type of the devil, the type of the flesh, and understanding spiritual things. I think I'm trying to grow there. I think I'm wanting to understand the power and the importance of prayer, the necessity of having a partner. And that, honestly, that's the other thing that I completely missed here is Joshua's part of a team. How am I doing being part of a team? Again, I think, and I keep saying this over and over again, I think I see mixed. I think I'm encouraged because I see some areas where I feel like the Lord is using and working on me. And I see other areas where, man, I need to become a team player. I see other places where my thoughts, my opinions, my desires, my needs, they rise up. And I need to put those things to death so that I can be a team player. How are we doing today with this, with being Joshua? How are you doing this morning? It's okay if you feel like you're doing great. It's okay if you feel like you're doing not. The goal of our Father is growth. How you doing this morning? The interesting thing is that the Joshua is actually the name of Jesus. We call him Jesus because I believe that's the Latinization of his name, but his name in Hebrew is actually Yoshua. God delivers, God saves. That's what the name means. God delivers, God saves. So what's interesting this morning is we're asking about Joshua, the son of Nun, but we're really asking about how are we doing following and being like Jesus, the Christ? How are you doing this morning? How are you doing in being under authority, in wisdom, in going out under the commands you've been given, in fighting the enemy, in being part of a team, in understanding and trusting in spiritual things that the Bible lays out for us? How you doing this morning in obedience and doing what God has told you to do? How are you doing this morning? How are we doing this morning? I just want to leave you with that. How you doing? Go talk to your dad. Let him minister to you about how you're doing. Don't let me minister to you. Let him minister to you about how you're doing. He'll tell you what. Where I'm failing, I love to hear the rebuke of my Father. I'm learning to love the rebuke of my Father. And where I'm succeeding, it breaks my heart to hear you're doing good there. Just keep growing of my Father. But it takes me going to him. It takes me going to him in order to get that. How you doing today? May the Lord bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you.